Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. I think we're live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Online Educa debate. I think we're just about all here now, and if everybody's ready, if you just charge your glasses or whatever and take your seats for another edition of the Online Educa debate, which has become something of a feature of this fantastic conference, which now is in its 28th year, not the debate, but the conference. And the debate, I think we've done about 12 of these. But Online Educa, or OEB Global Berlin, as it's now known, is something that has reached its 28th edition. And in those 28 years, if you think of the pace of change in technology and communications technology that there has been across that time span, it is absolutely incredible if you think of where we were back in the 1990s, in 1994, 1995. Most institutions, for instance, then were simply not adapted to the internet in any way at all. At that time, I was serving as a member of Parliament in England, and the UK Parliament, like most parliaments around Europe, didn't have any kind of internet facility. And I think I was even put on a committee as a punishment, and it was the Information Committee that was looking at how Parliament should adapt itself. And that's where the government business managers put you if you were a bad boy, basically. You got put on the Information Committee to look at developing the internet. So this is how far we've come over that space of time. And at every step, probably, along the way, I think it's fair to say, people were saying, this technology or that technology is not really suitable to education or training, and you can't really use mobile phones, for instance, in the education sphere, or whatever it is. And we now are here today to talk about the latest iteration of that, which is the Metaverse. And at the same time, almost, that OEB has been going, I think 2 years before was when the term, the metaverse, first came into use in a novel that was written by an American writer, Neal Stephenson, who wrote a novel called Snow Crash. And that was where, as I understand it, the metaverse was first used. And people who adapted their lives to the metaverse and who were constantly plugged into the metaverse were known as gargoyles, apparently. And this was a dystopian vision of the future. And we now have come so far that this dystopian vision has been adapted and is turned into, as some would see it, a utopian vision. So I'm going to leave that to our panel of expert speakers to talk about, and I'm not even going to define what we mean by a metaverse or the metaverse, because even that is controversial. And as I've gone back to university to do part-time legal studies, I know the importance of words and definitions, so I'm going to leave that to the experts. And on that subject, in introducing this debate, I would draw your attention to the motion, which is that this House believes that education should be, I haven't got my glasses, should be in the metaverse. I think that's right. Let me check that. This House believes education should move to the metaverse. Move could be significant. Should, definitely significant. But the interesting thing, with a slightly legalistic hat on, is believes education. Education. And the reason I mention this is because my colleague and friend Don Taylor, who chaired this morning's plenary session, did a fantastic job as always. Big hand for Don, and a tremendous opening plenary session. And he very kindly gave us a little plug for this session, for this debate. But one thing that he did do was he made one slight but possibly crucial mistake, which was that he added a word to the motion. He added the word all. So I just draw that to your attention. No doubt the speakers may pick up on this point as well, but what the motion doesn't say is this House believes all education should move to the metaverse. It says education should move to the metaverse, which could be all education, but equally they might argue, some of them, that it's more general than that or more specific or whatever. It's up to them to make their case. But one difference between having a parliamentary style debate, which is what this is, and being in a court of law, is that you don't have to convince the judge. Well, you have to convince you, and you are effectively the judge, but you can't introduce evidence, and you can say basically what you want. And I should point out that a number of that you shouldn't assume necessarily that all our keynote speakers necessarily believe every word that they're saying, because they may or may not. I think probably it's fair to say that that one or two of them don't 100% believe what they're saying. So that's not serious, that doesn't matter, because this event really is designed to be a bit of show business, really. It's to have a little bit of a run around the park, to look at some of the issues, and to allow you to have your say, and to explore this very interesting, exciting, and important theme. So finally, what I should just say is the rules, a little bit about the rules for people who haven't been to this event before. This is a parliamentary-style debate, so we have two speakers on either side of the argument. They're each going to speak for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to throw the discussion over to you and ask you for any questions you've got or any comments you want to make, or any short, sharp, to-the-point contributions. But I really emphasize that. If you start banging on, like I'm doing at the moment, then I will close you down and we'll go on. Because I imagine there will be a lot of people who want to speak on this. So short, sharp contributions, and then we'll have a summing up from both sides of 5 minutes each, and then we'll take a vote by a show of hands. My eyesight is getting worse and worse, so I can't really see, and normally I get criticized for calling it the wrong way, but hopefully I'll get it right this time. So moving on, our first speaker is René Schulte, who is the Director of Global Innovation, Research and Incubation at Valorem Reply in Germany, and he's the leading spatial computing and metaverse. He leads the spatial computing and metaverse practice at Reply, and he works with teams across the globe on emerging technologies. So he's going to be our first speaker, René Schulte. Thank you.
Thank you. Daddy, can I use the electro glasses again to see the planets? That was my youngest son was asking me just a couple of days ago. And he was referring to this device, which is obviously a virtual reality headset. And a few days before, I had him try out an experience called Spaces, where basically you can see how the solar system is built, and you can experience how the galaxy and all of this works. It's really well done, super nice visuals, great narration that really guides you through the process. And then also, you actually have some interactive elements where you can peek your head inside of a planet, which is awesome. Or you can use the controllers to push the planets onto orbit, right? So really some interactions in there. And this is awesome because it shows you really the size and the relation of all these planets, and you can grasp it much better in 3D, right? In stereo 3D with these devices. So wouldn't it be awesome if we could enable this for everyone in the world, for all students? So we could take them to the moon with the Artemis mission at the moment ongoing, or we could take them to the ground of the ocean, or travel through a human body, or meet Einstein or another, expert when they lived. A lot of these things are already possible with virtual reality these days, but mostly it's a solo experience. It's an isolated experience. And the benefit of the metaverse will become really interesting because we can all do this collaboratively together in a virtual shared world, and we can exchange ideas with each other. And I'm going to make 3 points here, 3 motivations, but before I do this, I want to first let me explain to you what is the metaverse. And of course, like he was saying, you get as many definitions these days as you have as many people in the room. But I like the one from Gartner, which is pretty good. Basically, they define the metaverse as a convergence of virtual and the physical world, right? And the metaverse is an immersive experience that is persistent and device independent. And what I think really important is that it's also integrating the physical, the real world into the experience. Because otherwise, it's nothing else than just, all these online games we already have, like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, all of those, right? It's not much different then. It's virtual worlds with virtual characters. So in embedding the real world into computing, I think is a really important aspect of it. Device independence is also very much important because of course, the best experience is with these kind of devices. You can see virtual reality with a stereo 3D, so left and right eye, you see it really in 3D. But of course, not everyone has that. And we need to be inclusive. And so we got to also include people that might have a mobile phone or a desktop computer. So these experiences also need to work on these devices. But of course, in the end, the best experience is with these kind of headsets. Another point is persistence. Right? Because, for example, imagine if I have the clicker in a virtual world, like a virtual clicker, I'm in a virtual world, I put this here. Okay, so if I come back a week later in the virtual world, it's probably gone, because the state is not preserved, right? There's no persistence in these online worlds today. So from a technology standpoint, it will be very hard, but it's very important, because if I come back a week later into my metaverse experience, it still needs to be there, because I left it there. Because in the real world, things don't also just magically disappear, right? It will be tough, but it's a very important building block of it. Well, if someone asks you, what is the metaverse, can you break it down? I like the definition from Alan Smithson. Simply put, the metaverse is the immersive internet, but you can go into it via virtual reality, or it can come to you via augmented reality. That's as simple as it gets, if you want to put it in one sentence. All right, my three main motifs. We can use the metaverse, and we can make immersive education available over boundaries, we can make it available over time, and we can make it available more democratic, cheaper, and more inclusive. So let me dive into each of those. And when I'm saying make it available over boundaries, and in fact, my 3 points, I want to focus those on developing countries, rather emerging markets, as we say. Because oftentimes, we always hear about immersive education and online learning, a lot with a focus on the Western world. But there's actually really interesting stuff happening in emerging markets. And the problem is sometimes, especially in certain rural areas in Africa, for example, NGOs are not going to build a school there because there's too less children, basically, to build a school. So what they do is they send them to a larger city, right? And so they leave their home. And especially also if you want to get higher education, oftentimes you have to leave your village, you have to leave your city, you have to leave even your continent sometimes. And that's a problem because oftentimes people don't come back, which leads to the so-called brain drain, right? And so this is a problem. And so why not bring actually education even in these areas, and we can use these kind of devices. And with offline content, of course, but it becomes really interesting, especially when we think about metaverse with online content. And so you might wonder, what, online content? Like, how should it work? Well, there's a company called Exo Global, and they partnered with a headset manufacturer to build a device that has a SIM card built in. So you have a SIM card built in, and you can use it. You can get online, right? And in areas where you don't have cell reception, nowadays we have satellite internet, things like Starlink, right? So this is possible, and you can bring an online classroom, actually, to the most rural areas in Africa. That's actually working. And so what I like about this, you can basically, like any one of you could be a teacher, anyone in the world. And we can have students from all over the world, and we can all get together collaboratively in an immersive classroom. And what I really find very motivational about this is we can provide equality in education to anyone in the world. My second point, we can make it available longer over time and basically increase knowledge retention. So PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, they found out that 275% of people that went through an immersive training are more confident to apply their knowledge and are 4 times more focused than their online e-learning peers, right? And I can tell you from my personal experience, I'm definitely more focused if we have our team meetings with these devices. You might say, what, you put on these devices and have a team meeting? Yeah, we have a distributed team across the globe. And it's much more immersive, although you see these people as avatars and not their online kind of video feed, but you feel much more connected. And also, you're fully focused, right? If you put this device on, you're shutting off the real world around you, mostly, and you have full field of view, right? A high field of view, a high field of vision, and fully focused. And so if you're on your computer, you know how it is sometimes, right? You have a meeting, Teams, Zoom, whatever, and then you just quickly alt-tab and do some email on the side or whatever. Well, that's not so easy if you're fully focused in the game, right? So another interesting point is what I noticed myself, like when we have these immersive meetings in certain Metaverse collaboration solutions, I can remember much, much more from these immersive meetings. Because otherwise, if you have like a whole day online courses or online sessions, just flat 2D in front of you, it becomes all a stream. It all matches, it all becomes one big gobble. But if you have these immersive meetings, you can remember much better. And I was wondering, why is this the case? There's actually science behind it. Our brain works spatially. And if you wear these devices, you get spatial vision. Like I said, stereo 3D, right? You see it in 3D. And then you also have speakers for the left and the right ear. For the right ear and the left ear. I got you there. And so we have spatial sound. So if Carlos over there is talking, I know immediately where it comes from, so I know where to turn my head. So I get spatial vision, I get spatial sound, and then I can also use my hands. Most modern devices have hand tracking. And so this triggers our brain, and especially there's also research showing that if you use your hands, it will actually use the hippocampus of your brain, which is a central element for long-term memorization. And so you can actually remember these things much better. There's actually an interesting study from USAID where they did training in Africa. I think it was in Rwanda, with smallholder farmers. And they split up the group. Like one group went through the classic training, which was classroom training with a teacher, 4 hours, PowerPoint presentation. And the other group went through a VR training that had similar content, but it was just 30 minutes. At the end, both groups took the same test. The group that went through the classroom classic training had 5% knowledge retention. 5%, it's terrible. The group that went through the immersive training had 45% knowledge retention. Same test for both groups, right? So nine times increase. And you can even do this in a local language, of course, right? You can provide these trainings in a local language as well. My third point, like I said, we can make it cheaper, we can make it more inclusive and democratic. Because everyone can basically be a teacher in these platforms. And I think especially democratization is interesting when we don't look so much into the big tech companies, but also these decentralized Web3 platforms, where you have also monetization options built in. And so, in fact, it's rather the smaller companies, like a lot of companies here that are pushing the boundaries when it comes to these immersive learning experiences. And folks from XO Global also found out that it's cheaper. They train 100,000 people in Africa already, and it costs them $2 to $4 per trainee compared to $150 for classic training. Because once you had the upfront cost, basically, it scales much better, right? PwC also found out it's 4 times faster, actually, to train someone in an immersive training. So a lot of interesting stuff, and I think we could find many more motivational points why the Metaverse is great. And it's a new additional tool, right? Like we heard it in the beginning. Like it's not take it or leave it. It's not everything, of course. But it's a great way, I think, to bridge the gap between in-person and online. So it's not a replacement for the real world. Of course not. No one wants to have, like you were saying, like the dystopian reality from Snow Crash or Ready Player One. Like who wants that? No one, right? But what we want is a more immersive connectivity with our friends and our colleagues. And I think this can be enabled with the Metaverse, bridging the gap, providing immersive learning and collaboration experiences. And I think that's worth to explore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, René. Our next speaker who will speak against the motion is Carlos Ochoa Fernandez, who is the co-chair of the Education Committee of the VRAR Association, and he's the founder and CEO of One Digital Consulting in Spain. And currently he's involved in a new innovative project about creating immersive experiences with the 5 senses around creative arts and music for education. Carlos.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to all the audience here because you are really amazing. Thank you to stay with us. For me, it's really a very great day, you know. Just 10 years ago, I was here in Online Educa. I remember that we were in a meeting, and the presentation was about virtual reality applications for training in emergency services, almost 10 years ago. Well, first I want to say something that, because maybe most of you already took a decision, and you said yes or not, but I don't want to convince you, okay? The thing is, you have to convince yourself. It's not my issue. I already convinced every single day in a different thing, because I really disrupted with myself. So one thing which is important is not technology. I love René, he's an amazing guy. And it's very, very good. We are friends. Maybe you cannot believe it. We are all friends, you know. Thank you, Rosa, to make it happen, because she was the one that put all these crazy guys together. One thing is important just to start. Human being is a part of the whole called by us universe. There is a definition of universe. A part limited in time and space, Albert Einstein. You know what does it mean? Time and space, when we want to fly, when we want to recreate our dreams, if we are rock and roll stars, when you are in the States and you want to do something, you want to be free. And this is something that we know how we feel it inside. But I would love to ask you something. How many women are in the house? Please. My God, this is great. Very positive reaction. How many men? Ah, good. How many avatars? One avatar. 3. Oh, surprise. How many robots? Yes, robots. Somebody said that in 21st century we were embedded by robots all around us, or replicants. You remember Blade Runner? Yeah? You know how you can identify a replicant? Empathy. This was the secret, empathy. And this is something very important to understand all these rules. I'm not going to talk about figures, blah, blah, blah. I came from Jurassic Park, 65 years old. Do you know what does it mean? Maybe someone of you know this old incredible company, Silicon Graphics. Yeah, I was working with Silicon Graphics machine. And the world is not 2D, 3D. No, this is our brain who understand or try to identify what is 2D, 3D. The world is more complex, and it's life, and a lot of things are happening every single moment. So the thing is, we are talking about something very seriously, education. And I can tell you, today, that just before I heard a lot of people saying incredible things, very, very, very intelligent, very smart. I learn every single day, and I make myself why I'm so, well, I make a lot of mistakes. But this is why I said, I know nothing. I cannot tell you or convince you about anything. But happiness is a journey. It's not something that you are going to find inside the classes, or somebody is going to manipulate your brain. And it's not the destination. And living, because today we have to live and we have to talk about real problems, because we think we are in a cloud. When we open the door, there are energy crises, we have wars, we have a lot of crises, and we don't talk about that. And what about the kids? Oh, they are gaming. They are happy. They are crazy with the screens and the terminals. So let the kids play. Why? You know, an environment where 20 people, 30 people can be alone, engaged every single day for 1 year without a tablet? We need to engage, digital, blah, blah, blah. Kindergarten. You have kids, and what happens when the kids come home? the tablet, the TV, please leave the game place. But in the kindergarten, they are not playing. They are playing with tools in 3D, the blocks, you know? So if you go to the kindergarten, maybe you will learn a lot how to engage and how to learn the people. This is a miracle. The teachers in the kindergarten are like God. And learning, why we need to learn. I've been in a lot of sessions. Nobody said why we need to learn. Because somebody paid. We need to learn because we need to work. We need to improve our life, and we need to get some money to survive. Otherwise, somebody will take our place. So this is very important. So first reflection. We, as leaders, we have a mission. And we have to take care of the future citizens. And education is a must. If we don't teach our kids, this planet will not survive. And this is something that we need to act now. Okay, education is a system. We talk about education. But education is a system. It's managed by the governments and sometimes by the multinationals. Learning is a process. So we know we can adapt or we can improve the learning process. But teaching is an action. And today, with the new rules, we can see that teaching and learning are part of the same environment. And we can see the roles of the teacher, the coach, and the student are changing. We are learning all together in the same environment. But what is Metaverse? No definition. Well, put the glasses. Wow, amazing. Please, be serious. I'm a member of the Metaverse Standards Forum, okay? One of the first members. We are not allowed to make a definition because we don't know how to define the Metaverse, first. Second, there are more than 4,100 Metaverse already. Please, be serious. This cannot be true. But yes, officially, there are many, many apps that you can download and you are in the Metaverse. Great. So this is not serious. And this is something that is a big, big entry barrier because the people that think, I'm against the Metaverse. I'm not against the Metaverse. I'm engaged against all the people, crazy people say, move to the Metaverse, go to blah, 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 Fortnite, and so on. This is not serious. We need to understand the value of technology, and then we need to look for the best way to implement the technology in the benefit of all. And this is very, very important. We are talking about the future of ourselves and our generations. We are not playing mini games, video games, blah, blah games. So the question is not the Metaverse, yes or not. This is not black or white, or 2D and 3D. No. My first glasses, I told you I'm 65 years old. My first glasses, stereographic glasses, I got it in the university. I'm civil engineer. And when I saw the Google Cardboard, and they said, this is the miracle of the future of virtual reality. My God, I got it this since almost 40 years ago. I can see the relief, I can see 3D, I can see everything for my daily job, you know? And this is something very, very important. But the question is, if we are talking about different technologies, one of the entry barriers and one of the things, because I'm in this industry and I want to survive, because the industry needs to create job and potential opportunities and development and blah, blah, blah. And the European Commission is focused on that. The thing is that we are talking about different technologies, and it seems that virtual reality is a laboratory intel outside the classroom. And what about robotics and what about artificial intelligence? It's a part of the ecosystem, and we need to understand how we can combine this part of the ecosystem. It's not the Metaverse and we are happy and gaming, no. So the thing is, the European Commission, just 5 years ago, invested a lot of money to train the teachers all around Europe. The project was just for tech. And the idea was how we can train teachers in vocational training and institutions just to understand virtual reality. Wow, that's the question. What kind of teachers? History, philosophy, mathematics, all they need to understand virtual reality? So they have the soft skills to understand the technology? That's the point. So the people started to buy Google Glasses or to make it in the printer at home. Then they need to buy a smartphone that costs a hell of money. They said, it's pretty amazing, yes, a hell of money. But the thing is that they didn't know how to integrate in the classroom environment. And nobody was telling the truth, okay? One thing is the demo and go inside the human body. Come on. There are a lot of films for the students all around the world that you can see better applications than this. So, okay, I'm sorry, I have too many things to say. But anyway, you can ask me. So, the impact of VR in education. And this is a truth. I've been in this business for more than 20 years, okay? And only was let's say, profit business when the money comes from the government. Otherwise, if there is no funding money, there is no industry at all. So we made a research inside our VR AR association where we are more than 4,000 companies all around the world, and in the education committee we are more than 600 people. I can tell you that the case studies with good reference are superwomen, supermen that are doing incredible jobs in isolated environment without any support. These are pretty amazing, but this is not the way to implement the technology as a whole, you know? And this is very important. So we cannot see only this isolated system, we need to implement it as a whole. And this is another task, another day. So I will go, because as I said, I'm not going to talk about content. Content is the king or the queen, as you want. And to create content in VR is pretty amazing. You know how many skills, profiles you need to create a very, very good environment? Can you imagine, just a question. You are using your web page, finished.
You've had a yellow card.
Yellow card.
You're going to get a red.
So the red card, okay. This is the last one. Well, I'm not going to talk about Metaverse.
Very, very short.
Nobody was talking about methodology. Nobody was talking about pedagogy. And I hate the meta players, meta boosters that always say that this is the future and blah, 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 blah. And there are a lot of things like avatars. I only will say one word about avatars. There were one to take care about avatars. I will tell you. When you put the glasses, all the information from the glasses and the device go to the cloud. Well, I said the cloud. You know where it's going. And you have an identity. And this is my last sentence. I have a lot, but for the next. Identity. An avatar is not a picture. Okay? When you register your avatar in a platform, you are putting some sensitive information. But how many avatars, how many roles do you want to play in the metaverse? And this is important. If you are going to buy something, if you are going to buy a building, or take care about that, or you are going to pay for some assets, who is the owner? The avatar, the identity? And the question is, last summer in the World Economic Forum, 4 people talking about the future of avatars, about the metaverse. And somebody make a question, the Ministry of Emirates, the Ministry of Interior, and he asked to the super experts, I go walking around the street in the metaverse with my avatar and somebody kill me. What? Yes, somebody kill me. What's happened with my identity? Well, it's a game. No. I have assets. I invested a lot in connections, collaborations, in people. What the hell is going on with my identity? Don't worry. And somebody said, okay, then immortality. Immortality will resolve this. So we are going to create an avatar that will be immortal. Thank you very much. I'm open to all your questions. I love you.
Thank you for that, Carlos. That's the longest sentence I've heard for a very long time indeed. But we are in the country of Thomas Mann, who Germany's great writer who could write a long sentence as well. So I let you get away with it. But I might be a little bit more generous with the other side because of that epic speech. But our next speaker is Andy Fidel, who is a spatial network evangelist and immersive experience designer from Spatial Network in France. And she creates social experiences for remote communities using digital and immersive technologies. And she coined the term spatial networking in 2016. Andy.
Thank you. Thank you. That was fabulous. So I'm going to put my notes behind because there's some things in here that I really want to talk about, and it's great because what I would like to talk about the metaverse, the big M word, is identity and community. So this metaverse, we have a loose definition, absolutely. We each have our own, and that's because I'm going to tell you, contrary to a lot of people, you get to define your metaverse. Because we live in a multiverse. There are many metaverses. There's not just brands. There's not just a space for Nike Land or a space for a school. It could be a public space. It could be an experiment. It could be the devil's advocate. I don't know. You have your own space, and you get to define what you want to do with it, what you want to share, and yes, who you want to be. And one thing I'm going to have you challenge in your thoughts with these 4 points I'm going to bring that you can do in the metaverse, you just can't do in real life, okay? And in that, I want you to think about, I think that if you're a better person in the metaverse, you're going to be an even better, wholesome person in real life. You learn real values in these spaces with people, with communities, with people you agree, but also the people you completely disagree with that you would never talk to in real life. So number one, we're going to go with identity. So the fact that we have digital embodiment. Today, I'm here as myself. This is me. And the first thing that happened, I'm sure, in a couple seconds, is there's a lot of thoughts racing. Who am I? What do I do? Did you look me up on LinkedIn? Did you see some emojis? My age, my gender, there's just so much that's packed into it. When we're in VR, there's something that's special that happens. You learn to discover people from the inside out. And in this physical space, we always learn and discover people from the outside in, if you ever get in. Because sometimes you just see someone and you just completely bypass who they are or the potential they could have in your life or in your thought process. Identity, embodiment. I get to choose absolutely who I am. And I raise my hand at a robot because I'm a robot in VR. I'm this little bumblebee, and I like to float. I love to take photography. Actually says a lot about my being. I like to be quite discreet. I like intimate conversations, and I absolutely love to explore. If you see someone jumping on the walls in the metaverse and trying to see if there's something to find or the greatest view, that's me. And so that avatar, when you see it coming at you, this little bumblebee that's whizzing around, that's exactly my energy, is just wanting to run around here. That's number one. Number two is the fact that because we have an opportunity to be a little bit more who we really maybe are, because we have less rules. There are no rules in the metaverse. There's no way to be or not way to be. We actually defined our own social status. We define what is comfortable for us, what is not comfortable for us. And so it gives people this chance to be quite raw and transparent. In real life, when I ask you, how are you? I'm gonna get a fine like 90% of the time. I'm great, I'm fine, I'm good. In VR, it's, I'm doing great because yada 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 yada. It goes on and on and on. You get a whole conversation by just asking someone randomly, hi, how are you? And that's because in the metaverse, contrary to what we have in real life, we have a status. In our online digital identities, we also have a status. We have a profile. We've pre-crafted what people are going to think about us. We have curated a version of ourselves that I'm not even sure if you actually look at that profile, is that really you? Is that who you want to be? In VR, we don't walk around with our profiles going around. People will judge you exactly that moment that you meet them. And so that's why they'll tell you why they're feeling good or why they're not feeling good. Raw, intimacy, transparency. And so let's fast forward, let's go back into how is this applicable in education? How is this applicable as a group experience? One thing that's quite unique about the metaverse is that we have something that's actually quite existent. When people ask me, when is the metaverse coming? And I'm like, well, it's already here. Welcome. Welcome to the Earth metaverse. You're in one. And now we have opportunity of exploring other ones or creating our own networks. And so I wanted you to think about the word spatial networks and spatial networking. We have social media, that's great. And the fundamental part about social media is social networking. The fact that I can say something, but I can also gather people. I can create community. I can gather people through my interests. I can gather people who are against my views but want to learn and find different perspectives. That's social networking. And then we have spatial computing, which is VR and AR and XR and all these words. What spatial networks does is that it takes a bit of both worlds. Spatial networks are social platforms that use VR and AR technologies to help people connect, share, and build community. And we have so many of these already, yes, but they're all quite different in terms of what niche are they bringing forward. And even better, I tell people, create your own platform. It's not even that hard. It's right there. It's ready for you to just create it. You create your community. You create your space. One thing about different also in spatial networking is in social media, like I said, we're curating a version of ourselves. Social media, what is actually engaging is your media. People are engaging with your media. In VR, there is no media. I am the media. It is how I feel today. I can't quite lie and say I'm having a great time. Yay! And I'm actually crying, and I just broke up with my boyfriend, whatever. Whatever it is, it's that raw moment of you are your media, and people are engaging with you in real time. And so what happens when you do this at a large scale? Because VR is not experienced alone. That's VR. Spatial networks is a shared experience. So you're having this experience with other people in the space. It is not a game. We are not players. We can argue and talk if Fortnite and Minecraft is a metaverse. But what it is an opportunity to actually communicate in real time with people that are remote. There are many reasons why we might be remote. It could be literally because we're in different parts of the world. My entire team is completely spread out in this world. I need to spatial network with them to actually connect with these people. I'm not holding their attention on a Zoom call. The other reason is when you are in a shared community in space, there's actual relationships that are building. And so when you think about, I lost my train of thought, that happens. But where I want to bring this into is when you're thinking about applying this as a professor, as a teacher, and you're applying knowledge to this type of technology, it's really quite infinite. And I want to bring one particular example that I find that you can't just quite do in the real world, and that's role-playing. And I just want to write on the point about having an avatar. Exactly, I have an avatar. I can also change up my environment. So whether it be security, whether, like one example you just shared this morning is, the people who fly like squirrels in the sky and they do this e-sport and they're just gliding in what seems to be a very dangerous moment. You could do that in VR. Another example is I have architecture students. When they build something, they show me something on a phone or a picture of, that's great, that's one thing. But another one is actually having a student say, come here. This is what I built. This is how I reimagine my city. This is how I reimagine my school or my classroom. It gives you the opportunity not only to ideate and to think about and to share verbally, but it also allows you to share an experience. So people are really immersed in that world with you in that moment. And so I'm going to pause there, because I just want to check the time. I have no idea. TV's turned off. Am I okay?
I'm being very generous to you after Carlos, so, you know.
Role-playing, I just want to continue a little bit more than if I have an extra time. It's also an opportunity. I'm going to bring it to some more concrete things, like, for example, HR, right? How to talk to people, how to train, how to engage. You have a moment to have a simulation. So yes, you're grasping the moment and the fact that this is not real. Obviously, it's a simulation. I get to try, and I get to fail. And that's one thing that VR allows you to do that you can't quite do in real life. You can't just say, you know what, I've never done a festival. I really, really want to do a festival. I want to do a festival that brings VR artists from around the world, and I've never done it, and I have no funding. Great. I convinced 10 people in my network to do it, and we created like one of the first VR festivals way back in like 2016. And you're like, wow. Another one, Winter Wonderland, same thing. I'm home for the holidays, and I'm really interested in bringing people together. And I don't really know where to start, where to go, and again, I don't really quite have any funding. And so it's just a matter of connecting with the people around you, and you create something that has hundreds of thousands of people coming through. And that mere concept of being able to try something and actually put it out in the world to see how people will react to it is unique. I can't do that in real life. Another one, this one is one I quite like, I quite do it a lot, public speaking. See, because if you are in VR, you would all be like shooting hearts right now. And so public speaking sometimes in real life is a little daunting because I'm speaking and you're reacting, but you can practice talking up on the stage. A lot of the fears that we have in real life and anxieties, well, guess what? They're part of your lives in the metaverse as well. You feel those things, so you can simulate quite anything. Anything that you have to do really well in the real world, like we say, you can give it a try and fail and try again and fail, or completely rip out the page and go to another book and do something else. You can find yourself. And while you're finding yourself, other people are finding yourselves. So I'm going to leave this moment here for questions later, but I want to leave you with the final quote is social media shares information. Spatial networks are shared experiences. And in these moments, we create memories. And that creates community. There.
Thank you very much for that, Andy. Our final speaker who will oppose the motion is Christina Yan Zhang, who is the CEO of the Metaverse Institute, and she's a pioneer in the metaverse. She started her master's research on the topic in 2006. She's also an award-winning business leader, and she's worked for QS, the leading world university rankings agency. She's also had quite a lot of political experience, having worked in the UK Parliament developing policy for the Shadow Business Secretaries team. So, Christina.
Hello, everyone. It's a tremendous pleasure to be here. As you can see, I was made in China, reinvented in the UK, and traveling around the world to help government ministers, university presidents, and business CEOs to develop world-class university and education. It is actually my first OEB conference. I really want to thank the organizer and every single one of you here today, because it feels really, really inspiring to meet so many of you who are working tirelessly every day to use technology to make our education much better and change the life of billions of people around the world. So I think all of you really deserve a big round of applause for the great contribution you have made to our society. Well, despite all the exciting potential our friends has proposed about the metaverse, I personally believe that at this moment, education should not move to the metaverse yet, because we are not ready, as simple as that. Do you agree? I see some applauses over there. Yeah, and I can give you a few examples here. For example, the last attempt to use the metaverse for education was not successful. Metaverse is nothing new, and the world's first metaverse, as you might remember, is called Second Life, right? That was created in 2003, so that was nearly 20 years ago, with 1 million active users. And at that time, hundreds of education institutions, they jumped into the metaverse and set up their virtual campus, and me included. I was doing my master research as part of that. But look at what happened. Do you think there is any university or education institution left now who are still active in Second Life? Anyone? No, they are all gone because it was not successful. The second point I want to make is the IT infrastructure of the ideal metaverse is not ready. According to Intel, to realize the perfect metaverse world, we actually need to require 1,000 times more computing power than I currently have, so we are just literally not ready. And my friend, René, you said that we could use metaverse to enable millions of students to have cheaper education. That's brilliant. But the reality is, if we have a look on the latest reports, well, the metaverse technology we currently have does not even exist to enable hundreds, needless to say, millions of people to interact in one place, because the technologies are not there. So it doesn't matter how grand our vision is, if the technology is ready, all the hard efforts we are putting in the space is not going to work, right? And of course, everyone's talking about Mark Zuckerberg, because the reason metaverse become so exciting is perhaps because he changed the name from Facebook into Meta last year. And let's have a look on what happened to Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, I read some news, basically said he's doing such a fantastic job with Reality Lab, to the point that there are rumors saying he's going to resign next year, and then he immediately jump out and say, we are doing fine. But everyone knows, the share price of Meta has decreased by 70%, nearly $200 billion US since he announced Meta is going to enter, Metaverse. I don't know if any of you think you have another 200 billion, US dollars spare you want to invest, in the metaverse and see how it goes. But I probably prefer to invest that in something else, which is more tangible, more relevant, and more pragmatic to the biggest, issue we are facing in the education now, which is about how to solve the issue of automation caused massive unemployment issues around the world. That's something we really need to pay attention. But no one's talking about that, only because metaverse is sexy. It's going to be the next biggest thing, according to McKinsey, as they said, $5 trillion US. Amazing, let's just jump into this, amazing opportunity at 500% increase every year. But look at Meta. And then you will decide why we are not ready to jump, because we are not ready. And my third point, sorry. My third point is the user face we are using now is not good enough. The leading user interface we now using are pretty much virtual reality. And our friend, René, you mentioned about your son and how he was really excited about using VR. I was at an event with Sky a few days ago, and I tried VR again. It's really amazing. I loved it. I was like teleport between different worlds and to the space, to the future, and I find it really energizing. But after 1 hour, I get really bored. I don't know if you feel the same. So I was wondering if the user interface is not really natural enough to allow you to have 24/7 every day. It's just not going to work. End of story. Would you agree? Yeah. And so try to solve that problem. We know there is another gentleman called Elon Musk. He's going a little bit further. So he said, I do not like VR. What's going to be the next better user interface? He said, let's try neural links. Put a little chip in your brain and try to make you feel really immersive. I feel very scared. I don't know about you. I wonder, let's have a try. Any people in the audience, you want to join Elon Musk neural links? Raise your hands now. No? Oh my God, you see, that doesn't work either. So you see, it doesn't matter how grand the vision is. If the user do not like it, it's not going to work, right? Okay, my fourth point about community and the spatial network. That's from Andy. I love it. Yeah, I agree. It's really important to have more bottom-up, activism, to enable people who traditionally don't have a voice to get involved. But let's have a look on what's really happening now. Anyone heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Yes. Okay, everyone. And he made it very clear, in order to satisfy our social needs for interaction, we need to sort it out our most fundamental needs. So that things like food, shelter, a really great job, feel loved, feel accepted, and respected by society. And we are in a major recession worldwide now, and many countries have double-digit, inflation rates. And across Europe, because of the war between Ukraine and Russia, energy crisis is really, really terrible. And my husband was telling me that we shouldn't stay in the UK because actually if we fly to Egypt and stay in a 5-star hotel for 1 month, it's going to only cost us 1/3 of the cost living in the UK just for this winter. It's really bad. So we have to be very pragmatic. Of course, we can use spatial, like part of the metaverse to create better community, to allow people to socialize. But at this moment, all of us facing the most fundamental issue is to survive. So I just feel it's a little bit too far-fetched. Did you see what I'm saying? Because I feel life is too short, and we really need to make the very best of everything we have. So maybe we just pay attention to what really matters now. It's definitely not metaverse. I haven't quite finished yet. Sorry, I tend to talk a little bit too much. How we are doing with time?
Minutes.
Okay. I take my time to finish my last point. My friend talked a lot about inclusion and equality, but could I kindly remind everyone that worldwide we still have a major digital divide, where 1/3 of the global population out of 8 billion, they do not have access to the internet. And our friend also talking about, exciting project in Africa to use VR for learning. But we all know HoloLens costs how much? $35,000 US. And we know the monthly, salary for most developing countries is about like less than $1,000 US. And during a recession with such high inflation rates, do you think it's really realistic to ask them to pay 3-4 months or even more of their monthly salary to buy really fancy, VR goggles, which they can't use 24/7? It doesn't make sense, right? So again, it's just not really working. So what I want to say in conclusion is the concept of using metaverse for education is exciting, fascinating, amazing. But in reality, to make it working for education, a whole new range of issues need to be addressed by the wider society, by governments, by technology companies, by investors, and by a lot of people who does not work directly in the education sector. So that's why no matter how hard we try as a community, it's not going to change the bigger picture. We can't change, the economy is not strong, right? We can't change the Ukraine war. But what we can do is really focusing on the things we can change. Maybe that's the technology you already developed. It might not have a really fancy name called the Metaverse, but it can maybe, empower tens of thousands or millions of people. Either it's women, it's, people from low socioeconomic background, people have special needs, or from ethnic backgrounds. We can empower them to really use education to better the life of themselves, their family, their community, their country, and then we can make the whole world a better place. Shall we do it now? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Christina. And now it's over to you, ladies and gentlemen. So who would like to ask a question, make a contribution, give us the benefit of your views? Please put up your hand, and I can't really see to the back of the hall, so you'll have to wave or shout or something to, if you're sitting in the outer reaches. Yeah, in the front row here. And if you could just tell us your name and
my name is Monica Lempke, and I'm representing PwC. So first of all, thank you, René, for quoting PwC research on VR effectiveness. It was nice to hear it. And Andy, you said quite loud that there are no rules in Metaverse, which can be the big advantage, but I can also see the threat. And it also recalled quite the new information about the Oculus founder, Palmer Luckey, who managed to, like he said, he managed to create the headset that if you get the screen shown game over, it also means the game over in real life. Of course, we can treat it as some sort of joke, but seriously speaking about the ethics and the threats that having no rules in Metaverse can bring more threat than benefit to this technology. I wonder what's your view on that?
Okay. Yeah, I want to bring it back to, he created this headset. It's a bit like Sword Art Online, where they get stuck and they get swooped into a video game. And you're all players, and you have to be, several levels to get to the end. And everyone, while going through those levels, as you die, you actually disappear in real life. And so, I don't know, Palmer Luckey, I find that we have these pillars of people, and they created technology, but what happened in that, and that's why we have these just these really big names that are taking up a lot of, I find, time and energy. And we're really not concentrating on the ripple effect that what is happening in these spaces. The real interesting and inspiring spaces are probably not the ones that you're watching or you're seeing on the media. Mark Zuckerberg is not part of the Metaverse. I don't see him there. I don't see his communities. Palmer, when's the last time you actually hung out and you done something inside? So I want to bring it back to that it's your own space, and you get to put the rules. In one of my roles, I have this act of, it's a bit of like a leap of faith. So you don't just come into my space. My space is called Get Social. It is meant to socialize. And so it always has this act where people have to jump or open a door, but there's like a virtual signature that you're coming into this space. And I'm setting the tone, I'm setting the intention, I'm setting our community guidelines. And so that's what I mean by no rules, because I do want to express how liberating it is, how each person can kind of set their own standards, because you have this opportunity to craft a space and craft and teach and learn from your community. But this idea and concept of having just one metaverse, one brand, one ideology, whoa there. You're missing the whole point about these virtual spaces. So I want to, that's my concept, is to really think about the people inside and the people that are building these communities, whether it be, for LGBTQ. There's a lot of communities in the world where just uttering that word out or just having an emoji can have a dramatic effect in your personal life or your professional. And so I see these clubs and I see these groups gather through this technology in a way that they have quite not. I also have people come to my space that, yeah, I'm gonna stop there. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. I just wanted to make the point that we to all our speakers, that and if somebody asks a question, I'll let both sides reply to it, and Carlos is gonna comment on that. But I do want to say that the point is that we try to get people from the audience.
No, I do prefer the people talk. We are here just for learning from your side. Please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, briefly.
I do agree that, and you mentioned that everyone can have their own standard in the metaverse, which is beautiful. But in reality, if metaverse are really going to work, we need to have a standard to ensure interoperability between digital assets and, different platforms. So you don't have to create many, many different avatars for every single platform. And, all the, assets, can transfer between different, platforms. So that's like a very fundamental issue that's not happening now. And you mentioned about the standard forum. They are still debating how to set up the standard. It's probably going to take a few years. But for us, educators, we can't wait that long because there are so many important issues we need to address now. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, so there was a question over here, or a comment over here, I think. Yeah.
Hello, Philip. I'm working in education, and there's this general rule that any idea can look good after 2 glasses of wine. Now, I still have to find the appropriate amount of alcohol to find the idea of a metaverse controlled by Mark Zuckerberg in any way good. Because what I've seen, I mean, I'm much too young to have seen the emerging internet. But I do remember downloading Napster files and everything that was illegal back then and enjoying that tremendously and seeing that community. And I see the exact enthusiasm that we had in the early internet days with the metaverse at this panel. And however, I'm also a Star Trek fan, and I've seen what the amazing ideas were there with computers reacting to you, with the holodecking and all that. And we've got those computers now, but they're trying to sell us diapers and washing powder. We've seen the Google glasses that are actually augmented our reality with advertising and stuff like that. And my biggest concern is that once this idea of a metaverse turns out, there's no utopia that we're going to see. And there's none that I know, no popular art, no film, no movie whatsoever that sees a metaverse as a desired state and a great place to be. But I'm looking like the oasis of Ready Player One, or so, and you already mentioned those ideas. I'm still afraid that this will just turn out into another corporate-controlled hyper world where every of your movement is tracked, where you're judged based on your financial abilities, on your cognitive abilities, and so on. So how are you going to even that out, and how are you going to make sure that this is not going to be a corporate-controlled dystopia?
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to ask our speakers to respond to that in the summing up, so that we can get a few more contributions in. Yes, okay. In the middle there.
You're going.
Yes, hi, thank you. My name is Matthias. We've had some great talks, but apart from René, we didn't really talk about the application in education. We talked a lot about the metaverse in general, and if it's ready or not, and what it can do in general, but not really about what it can serve to education. And the motion says move to the metaverse, not be, the education should not be the metaverse, but should move to the metaverse. And move is a journey, and so you need to start, and it doesn't mean that it will all be only that, and that all energy will only be focused only to that. So my question is to the against side, the opposing side, why are you against that the education sector starts thinking about the metaverse and start this journey, why would it be so bad?
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Great question. I was waiting for your question. One thing is important to know. The world as we created is a process of our thinking. This is important. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. That means that in the way that the metaverse is defined or agreed by some medias or whatever you want to call it, we think is not the right way, okay? We are not against. We said that we are not in the right path. Everything has to be redefined. Why? Very simple. There is an offer coming from the market, okay? Anybody from the market ask to the users, what is their research? No research. We have a solution for your life. I don't like that you have a solution for my life. I want to choose the decision for my life, okay? This is important to know. The other thing is when we talk about education, we have today, this was something that was cut because the time is so restricted. The implementation today of XR in the education sector is not very good, okay? Because there are a lot of barriers, entry barriers, and the problem is that nobody talks with the students. Nobody asks where are the real needs. And this is very important. Oh, but the teachers, I can tell you something. In the VR area, I'm not allowed to say that, but now I'm confronting with myself. The thing is that the manufacturers said, kill the teachers, they are against the technology. Choose the students directly and this will be crazy, you know? No, the teachers are the coaches and are the owners of they are superheroes. They need to know everything about all, you know? So the thing is that we need to prepare the world in the way that we can adapt the technologies, and not only in this isolated way that everybody is agreed. We are talking about an isolated way. Reflection, distance learning, everybody knows the meaning of distance learning. eLearning, LMS, and now Metaverse. What is the evolution, how it works, you know? The eLearning, hybrid learning, what is the purpose in education? It's a platform, it's a service, who is going to train the teachers to use in the right way.
Okay, Carlos, that's a great answer to that
No.
question, but it's turning into a...
The last second. Please take care about the VR devices.
Always the last.
Okay? Many universities, schools invested a lot in devices, and the manufacturers don't care about that. And you have a lot of devices without any use because nobody's maintaining that. Okay? I'm not going to say the name, but you have all the names here.
Thank you. Yeah. Ryan, down here in the front row.
This is not a question, it's just an observation to oppose the notion, which is it brings to mind the idea that we teach badly in the classroom, why not teach badly in the metaverse? Which, to some extent, the point I want to make is that those of us that are tasked with using learning technology to improve teaching within higher education, to improve access, or maybe in the training development industry, we've got some pretty fundamental challenges that are way short of this, and we need to address those first. Even getting our academic council to accept some changes of practices, getting lecturers to adopt technology in simple ways. We've got a lot to do before we go into the metaverse, and it will only prove to be a distraction.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, on the left in the middle.
I have a question for, my name's Claudia Krebs, University of British Columbia in Canada. I have a question for the proponents of the metaverse. I've yet to be convinced that the affordances of this technology are superior to our reality and to the technologies that we currently use. I'm also worried about the risks. I love that there are no rules, Andy, and you're a wonderful person, so I'm sure your space is wonderful, but there are a lot of people who aren't wonderful. How do we keep our students safe? How do we keep them protected from cyberbullying? How do we manage this brave new world that is being proposed when we can't see how this technology is any better?
That's a really good question.
Okay, let's have one from Jeff over there.
Please don't forget to leave your vote before you leave.
No, I just want to add something. We are making the same mistake all over again. It's not about the metaverse. It's about, should we allow teachers who understand to use the metaverse in what they are doing? It's not about education should adapt. We should allow teachers who understand to try and prove that it works. You understand? So we have to do it, because if we don't do it, we don't make the errors we need to understand. So I'm for the thing. We should embrace it. Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, Aboy from the Hague University of Applied Science of the Netherlands. Thank you very much for giving me a new definition of the metaverse. Apparently it's a money-gobbling corporate devil, I think. But actually, I totally agree with what the gentleman just said. I think we should try. We should make our first steps. And of course, it's not about we should move to the metaverse. We should really find out what the metaverse can really, where the metaverse really can help us. So it's not about the tool, it's about the goal. And the goal is learning. So where can metaverse help us learning? We should get started. Well, not now, yesterday.
Thank you. I'm going to take one more down here.
It's like very short, but thank you. I'm kind of very in between, and I don't think like I need to be against or very, cheering it.
So
but my concern lies with what about our natural human abilities? Like, I can imagine a lot of stuff in my head. I have really good imagination. And now can you imagine, like, when we put those 3D goggles or whatever we can, invent in the future, and 3-year-old already grows up with the stuff. What happens with their imagination? Because I believe, like, imagination is a real, great power we have as humans. We have it. What happens with that?
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, having said we'll take one more. Why not?
My name is Sivai, and we talk about education, but I have another view about the ownership of the metaverse, because right now we don't have the metaverse. Every metaverse we are talking about belongs to one company. Second Life, Lab, the new metaverse to Mark Zuckerberg. It's a question that we want to make a contract to only one company. The company decides what we can do in this world. And if we see like Twitter, what happened now, I think that's not the solution right now for us to make us so not independent, because they can decide what we could do in the world and also in the education.
Okay, thank you for that.
May I say?
No, we're now going to go to the summing up. So Christina, I think, is going to sum up for your side. So, and then
some of the audience mentioned about how we can ensure the metaverse is not dominated by some big player. I think the beauty about the whole movement on Web3 is really decentralization and helping the individual communities to have bottom-up movements, to have more say in traditional places where they don't have a voice. But I agree, maybe the first thing we should really do is to ensure in the future of the metaverse, the regulation, especially the regulator, will be properly educated so they know what's going to happen. I'll give you one example. Everyone heard about the scandal of FTX recently, have you? It's massive. And if they are not, new thing, crypto exchange, but like any other kind of financial, regulations will come in to prohibit them to use a fund of clients to do all kinds of non-compliant activities. It's the same for Metaverse. So I think the compliance needs to be in place. And some of you talking about online safety, I agree with you entirely, and I'm even more worried about data protection and ownership in the Metaverse. Because with VR, AR, all the many different wearables, IoTs, voice recognition, gesture recognition, neural chips, a large number of our personal biometric data and health data is going to be automatically captured by those devices controlled by big players in the tech space. And I feel very worried that maybe some companies might use my behavior recorded in those kind of data to try to sell me something which I do not really want. And around the world, regulators are looking into this space now, but normally it will take like 1 year or two for any legislation to take place. So what can we do now? That's a major concern. That's why I think when we're dealing, students, whether they are above 18 years old or under 18 years old, online safety and content control is always absolutely #1 priority. But this area is completely gray. That's why I think we need to pause, the intention to jump into the space now. But I also agree, as one of the audience mentioned, that we need to talk more about what can we do in the future when the regulation is in place to ensure this is really safe for education institutions to get involved, and then we're going to play all kinds of exciting scenarios to really maximize its benefits. So that's my second point. And my third point, I personally feel very strongly, is about sustainability. Many of you probably heard about last year as a peak of the crypto hype, which is, at the center of the digital, space within the metaverse. Cambridge University released a report highlights the energy consumption of Bitcoin mining, and it's very, very, terrifying. So the whole world, when they're doing all this kind of mining of Bitcoins, the energy consumption is actually larger than Argentina as a whole country of 48 million population. And it was so bad to the point that the White House released a report demonstrating that crypto mining has used too much electricity to the point to stop the US as a country to achieve their UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we know the COP27 has just finished in Egypt. And worldwide, we still haven't found a perfect solution to ensure the global warming is not reach 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. So if any part of the metaverse ecosystem, purely because we are going to have more simulated experience, either using VR, AR, etc., that's going to consume huge amounts of energy, more than Bitcoin mining. And also, one of the gentlemen mentioned about we don't want just one metaverse. We probably want as many metaverses as possible to provide alternative for the end user to really decide which one is best for them. Maybe we can have a children's metaverse where we have all the safe content, and we can have women's, metaverse. We're talking about, gender equality, etc. And in the perfect world, when the technology matured, we should be in a position to allow every single one of us to create our metaverse, just like create our own TikTok or Twitter social media accounts. But when that happens, imagine the world has just recently, reached 8 billion population. Having 8 billion metaverse, how much energy consumption that's going to be? I don't know about you. I do not feel like I want to live 24/7 in a metaverse and forget about all my friends in real world. That's not going to work. At least I can't eat, I can't sleep, and I can't dream in the metaverse. So that's definitely not going to work for me. So I think, in conclusion, we are here to really try to find solutions to address very pragmatic use for education. And one of the gentlemen over there, you mentioned about during the pandemic, a lot of teachers, they are really, really stressed. because they are new to online teaching and the pedagogy is not ready. And I think my biggest issue with adopting the metaverse for education now is the lack of proper pedagogical framework on global scale. If that's not in place and you want to try something for the students, how could you ensure quality for the whole learning and teaching process? That's going to be a complete disaster. That's why I think it's better we make baby steps each time, and until the regulation is ready, till we can figure out a solution to ensure sustainability, and maybe when we can educate our teachers when they are ready to jump into the metaverse, and then we should do that at full speed. But now, it's just not good enough. And I think we should all come back and thinking about how we should focus on the most urgent issues in the education environment and try to put all our efforts to get that sorted. And once that's sorted, we can talk about more fancy stuff, either AI or metaverse. That's the way moving forward. And I want to conclude my speech by quoting one of my favorite leaders. Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful tool we can use to change the world, and I believe that we can do it now, but not with metaverse." Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So now I'm going to call Andy to sum up for the opposition.
Sorry.
Then we'll take a vote.
Okay, thank you. I would like to start by just revisiting a few words, especially for some comments or some questions that we had. When we say the word experience, experience is a form of learning. When we go through an experience, something happens to us, we observe, we learn, we become different, and we adapt. The more times you experience something, whether that is, you evolve with it. I can't really just know something because I read it out of a book. I have to do it. I have to live it. I have to know what it felt like. I have to know how it transformed. I have to know how I made other people feel. The first time you get bullied, you don't know what it means, but the first time it happens to you, you experience it. So every time I say the word experience, whether it's individual experience or a group experience, that's education and that's learning. And so I want to, the word education is such a big word, but at the end of the day, we're learning. We are learning by doing. We are learning by sharing. And at the end of the day, aren't we just learning and sharing how to make better human beings? Compassion, empathy, being a risk taker, being a thought leader, failing, like all these are things that we have to go through, and we have to do it by doing. The one thing that we can do in virtual reality is actually be there and touch it and see what happens. I know you know this example of like in science when they told you, don't mix these products. What is the first thing you want to do? What happens? Teach me what I should know and teach me what I should not know. And I think this kind of thing of no rules, what's going to happen to people? Well, I think knowledge is a spectrum. To understand what makes something good, we have to understand why something is bad. And so whenever you craft a space, you're going to bring culture, you're going to bring empathy, but you're also going to give people a permission to explore themselves and to explore themselves in relationship to other people. And so, yes, I implore and I really want everyone to at least leave here with the curiosity of what if something that I do, whether it's a student lounge, whether it's a small design challenge that people have to come together, it's try it. I can't tell you about the metaverse. You have to go in there and I'll see you there and then you'll feel something. But I want to argue that whether or not we go or not, you are in it. You will know how to teach in virtual reality. I can promise you more than the digital and the tech and the buttons and it's not me. When I'm in VR, I'm here. I'm here with you and I talk to you and I talk with my body and I talk with myself. I think a lot of you are going to realize that the metaverse is very close to what you're experiencing now, And you and I are kind of just both wanting to ditch the computer. So I'm going to stop there.
Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you to all our speakers. And my apologies to anybody who I didn't call to ask a question or make a comment earlier. If I missed you, it's probably because I can't see you. I can't see far beyond these lights. But we'll now take a vote. So can I ask all those who are in favour of the motion that this House believes education should move to the metaverse to raise their right hand? All those in favour of the motion? And right, thank you. And all those against? I would say that the motion is defeated, narrowly, but been a very, I think that's right. I always get it wrong, so don't take it personally. But thank you all very much indeed. And the vote, I have to say, is the one part of the conference where we don't have any kind of technological innovation or involvement at all, where we could really do with it, actually. So for next year, maybe somebody will come up with something. But thank you very much indeed for attending the online Educa debate, and see you again next year, I hope. Thank you.
Well,
sorry about that.